Gulf Coast MakerCon 2014 coverage is proudly powered by Krayos in the all-new Krayos Meteor, your voice and gesture-controlled smartwatch. Get fit and stay fit with activity trackers, make and take calls hands-free, send and receive text messages, and you can wear it however you want. Change it up to suit your style. Best of all, it works on iPhone, Android, and Windows 8. Pre-order your Meteor now at f5live.tv/Meteor.
So one of the things that we've talked about is the kind of all-encompassing, I want to do something and I'm going to do it nature of the maker community.
That's what I love about it, yeah. It's the best part.
And sitting next to us now, we have somebody who certainly embodies that. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Chuck. I'm from the Tampa maker scene, the Community Innovation Center, and the MakerCon, and mostly of my workbench and my soldering iron at home in my living room.
And that right there really sums up what I was saying about I want to do something, and I'm going to do it. You have a soldering iron in your living room, not necessarily, in a small corner of the garage. It's really a part of you, a big part of who you are, right?
Yeah, I have a very patient wife. Let's just say that. I was doing a hangout on Google Hangout the other day with some of the folks from Make, and somebody made the comment of, wow, your workshop looks really awesome. And I panned the camera around and showed them the TV and the couch and everything. I said, this isn't my workshop. This is my living room. So I think I struck jealousy in some people's hearts and disgust in others, depending on where they sit on that side of the fence.
Whether that's the dream or
the nightmare,
the indication of a sickness.
my wife falls asleep to the smell of solder fumes and tweaky pretty much every night.
Now
she's a maker widow.
You mentioned you mentioned the Community Innovation Center.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of involvement in that, but I would like your take on that. Explain to those who don't know what that is, why it's so interesting.
Okay, I get to practice my elevator pitch. Basically, it's a makerspace and an entrepreneurial center. We want to help people discover their creativity, discover their skills, and share those things. And those that want to take it to the next level and become not just makers but producers, we want to help them along that lines too. Like Gabriel with Gabotronics is a perfect example of someone who's taken a maker product and turned it into a business, and it's a pretty successful and amazing product. And we really want to be cheerleaders for that. We want to see people transition from makers to producers without losing track of what it is to be a maker. The community is the most important thing, and the money should come second. And we really want to instill that the community is the focus of what we do.
And it's right there in the name.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And I love that the message, especially coming from people who are doing this, we cover it and we are on the software side, but the tinkerers themselves, the message is if you like to do something, do it. Just go do it.
That's
and now
it.
we have a place for you to do that.
And let me tell you, I'm 42. I grew up in the 80s where there was no internet. If you wanted to know how to do something, you had to subscribe to a hobbyist magazine that came in once a month and trickled information, or you had to go to the library and parse through stacks of books. Here's a perfect example, and I've told this story many times today, but one of the things I brought today was an Arduino project. And I started fooling around with the Arduino a long time ago, about 9 o'clock Saturday morning. I've had an Arduino sitting on my bench for months, and it was so daunting, the idea of learning a programming language. So it's just sat there, and I had this program with Make coming up with introduction to the new Intel Galileo board. And I usually work with the programmer, but with everything going on, there was time constraints.
Sure.
So we were doing our hangout in the final show and tell on Thursday. So Saturday morning, I was like, well, I better learn to program this thing or I'm going to be embarrassed. So I went from installing the Blink Sketch on Saturday morning to having a 4-mirror controllable laser spirograph last night that I showed. And that's the key to this maker thing, is that what used to take weeks and weeks and sometimes months of troubleshooting, I ran into problems several times with this project that I could just go to the other side of the desk, click, 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 and there was the solution.
Right.
And there's a shift in the information economy right now.
Okay.
Whereas information used to be scarce. It was definitely a seller's market. Now it's a buyer's market. The information's there. There is no reason not to do what you want to do. If you want to program a computer, the resources are there. Economics also are no longer a barrier to these things. Stuff that used to take lots of money for an upstart company, now by using crowdsourced, open source projects, you can really knock out a huge amount of your R&D. The Chinese manufacturing sector has really come on board with the let's work with the smaller manufacturers. So as before, where you might have to order 10 to 20 to 30,000 units, you can do a rollout product with 500 to 1,000 units.
Right.
And it's just accessible. And people like Bunny Wong have really made inroads into making this possible. The maker scene, it goes hand in hand with the information age, and it's the natural offshoot.
And the ability for a community to form around it
Yes.
encourages the collaboration and the ability for a company to figure out how to small mass produce a run instead of having to do a full production run.
And you touched on something important. Collaboration is key with this. There's always been, and there's been a debate online. There's some people out there who really don't know what making is, and there's some people out there who have seen some of the more visible proponents of the maker scene.
Sure.
And there's kind of the takeaway in some certain circles that it's a bunch of hipsters blinking LEDs with Arduinos. And, to an extent,
There is some of
does
that.
happen. But the difference, and one of the arguments they make is that, well, people of interest, they're hobbyists, and hobbyists have always gotten together to discuss what they do.
Right. Sure.
The difference is, and what you said, is the cooperation. Makers are polymaths. Let me tell you, I paint in acrylics, I sculpt, I do metalwork, I do electronics, I play music, I cook. That's what a maker's about. Whereas before, the ham radio guys had their meeting over here,
Right.
and the automotive guys got over here. The makerspace is about the ham radio guys talking to the automotive guys, who talk to the robot guys, who talk to the microcontroller guys. One of the most amazing things I've seen lately is someone has a project where they're working on an open source car computer.
Okay.
So if the central control computer of your car dies, you can replace it with an open source programmable thing. My dad recently put a chip in his car that changes how the engine runs and makes it run faster. I'm not a car guy, but the whole idea with
It's
this,
the one thing that you're not into. Is that
you can only do so much in a day.
fair enough?
But the whole idea of this is that rather than replace that chip, you have a whole open source computer in your car that you plug in a USB port, and you can change parameters like the timing, like the fuel mixture, like how the brakes respond. And that wouldn't have happened 20 years ago where the car guys were here and the computer guys were here. That collaboration is what really defines the maker culture, where I can look around this room and see my friends who are videographers, roboticists, artists, and it really brings it all together, and that's really amazing to be a part of and to be on the ground floor of.
A friend of ours, who's actually a mutual friend of our next interview, he's a software guy. That's who he is. And at some point, he decided he wanted to make a quadcopter.
Right.
And so he did. He learned everything there was to know about aviation and virtual horizons and all of that stuff. And he built a quadcopter. I think it's powered by two NetDuinos, so similar to an Arduino, but with the Microsoft backend. And he can control it from his Windows 8 tablet.
Yeah.
And he built the whole communication line as well. And it's truly impressive. I've seen it in action. It tried to kill me one time.
Yeah.
And
That happened.
it really is an interesting piece of hardware. And if he hadn't had exposure to the NetDuino or something, he never would have tried it.
Yeah, and it's that open source and sharing and cross collaboration that's really the key to what we do. As the great Robert Heinlein said, specialization is for ants, and we're not ants. We're people. If you reach a certain age and you don't know how to do at least 5 or 6 different things, you've somehow wasted your opportunities.
I totally agree. One of the things we talk about, so with the first program, with the robotics program, I was in FRC long ago. And the things that the FTC kids, the robots that are here right now, the things that they were asked to do in the challenge this year, MIT couldn't have done when I was in the program. And so I was like, wow, these little things are going to do what? And I keep saying that it's all about the compound knowledge. It's the fact that they have the ability to pass it on from team to team that everything gets better, and it's the same thing in the makerspace. So
I think of it like the classic Japanese pachinko machine, where you drop the ball on the top and it bounces off the pins. Those pins are ideas and experiences. So you have that initial germ of an idea, you drop it in the top of the machine, and it bounces off of, and then it ends up in the right slot in the bottom. And that's kind of how the maker brain works versus the traditional style of design, where it's more of a solid path, you know?
Right.
That bouncing around, that little bit of chaos with all the different influences is what puts that output that's so impressive.
Absolutely. Well, Chuck, we appreciate you coming and talking to us. Probably the most interesting conversation.
Yeah.
we can have, because you really are all over the place. That's one of the things that that Terry talked about, and one of the reasons we really wanted to talk to you today.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming by.
Absolute
And
pleasure.
keep making stuff. The future's bright.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
He's such an interesting guy.
Oh, man.
He had when I ran into him earlier, he's got a music box thing that he built. It's using actually jumpers, just alligator clip jumpers. There's 42 of them, I think he said, and you hook them up. They create certain patterns, and boom, music comes out.
Right.
I was so impressed by it.
It's crazy.
And that's what happens when you're into both technology, and music and art and painting and all of those things. You think of crazy projects like that,